Now, the second point that I wanted to close with is that your own scholars know. They know your book has been changed. With some of you, it's as if you're trying to use the Quran to convince yourself.
Yeah, possesses Malik, master. You can put it in both ways. And then there is Malak al Yawmiddin. So when you say Maliki Yawmiddin, this is Qalun and versions of Quran or Musaf al Quran. Here it's a king. Now let's go to one of the early tafsir. This is Qala Abu Jafar. Abu Jafar said, وَأَوْلِيَ الْتَعْوِيلِ بِآيَةٍ, according to the ta'wil of the ayah, وَأَصْحَى الْكَرَاتَيْنِ فِي تَلَاوَةٍ عَنْدِي. So the correct kira from the qira'ats, the talawas are at-tawilu awwal wa hiya kira min qira'a maliki bimani al-mulk. So they say that it should be king, which by itself means the owner and the keeper and the everything. La
That's right.
infi, right. And then they say, because if you are a owner, you might not be the king, but if you are the king, you are by default the owner, and that is why it says the fazila ziyada al milk, because the king by itself owns. Because if you own, you might not be the king.
That's right.
So by a Tibri, okay, by Tibri and his tawil on this verse and this word, he is stating that Maliki Yawmiddin should be Maliki Yawmiddin should be Maliki Yawmiddin and not Maliki Yawmiddin. So imagine the basic first verse chapter of Quran that you have to recite in every salah, in every qiyam.
It's basically whenever you pray, when you're standing, Muslims will start with Al-Fatiha, this chapter, and then they will read something else before they start doing their movements in the prayer. That's what my brother is talking about here. There is another reading, by the way, that many Muslims get upset when you bring it up. It's Qira'at Abu Hanifa, the reading according to Abu Hanifa, the founder of the Hanafi school. And he would say Malaka, meaning he gained possession of the day of judgment. My goodness, gained possession from who? Who was
Exactly.
possessing it?
But rather, you have a bunch of anonymous people. They can tell there were different scribes and authors adding and changing things, losing things. People coming together saying, we're going to put this in, we're going to keep this out. That's what you have. So please, please stop using this flimsy, ridiculous argument.
This
And
is
we are going to
chapter
spend
2, folks. Chapter 2 of the Quran, and the very first, at least 2 verses right now.
exactly. So with the Alif Lam Mim, they have two problems. Either they should pronounce it as a haraf, or Abu Hayyan said that we should actually pronounce them as separate lafaz, like the alif, lam, and meen. Harafan means the separately, each and every word should be pronounced separate. So they don't even know how to do kira. So in the hadiths, you know that there is a problem of kira, and then there is a problem of aharuf. That Quran is so called came in Saba Aruf, but this is not Saba, as we will see. This is so more than Saba.
Yeah. So let me explain what's going on here to our viewers. There are certain chapters in the Quran, like this one, chapter 2, starts with what they call the mysterious letters. Mysterious letters. Sometimes they call them the disjointed letters if they decide to read them one by one. And you'll see here, and you might want to put your cursor under it, brother, or highlight it, the
Yes.
Alif Lam Mim. This is it. That's the beginning of chapter 2 of the Quran. No one knows what these mean. I guarantee you, nobody knows. There isn't even a single tradition that even Muhammad knew what they mean. So this is the type of stuff that you're dealing with in the Quran, and everybody gets excited. Oh, what a miraculous, book. Miraculous what? Give me a break. Nobody even knows what this. I suspect this is probably was abracadabra or something like that, and they're using it to open like a a cave where some of the jewels were, hidden. It sounds like it to me. But all that to say is nobody knows what they are. And some will say it's mysterious letters because Allah will not reveal its meaning until later. So why did he give it to me in the first place? I don't understand it.
Exactly. And because you said abracadabra, I wanted to bring abracadabra later, but now let me just bring it. So according to the Brill Encyclopedia of Quran, which is translated, you can get it from the internet, they say the ahruf is a magical practice. Ahruf is a magical practice because in Islam, black magic is wrong. Hence, they say it is reserved for the white magic. So there you go, your abracadabra.
So how many times do I have to say it before it opens that hidden treasure for me?
Every time you say something, I'll open some treasure, brother. And this is the Brill Encyclopedia index page, because Brill Encyclopedia is volume after volume, so they have an index page for that. Index book, sorry, which has 587 pages. This is just the index. And they say haruf, haraf, letter of alphabet, words in the Quranic reading dialect, okay? And come to the green part, and it says over here that it is a onomatopoeia, a magical practice based on the occult properties of the letter, of the alphabets, and of the divine and angelic names which they form. Brother, you want to say something on that?
Brother, if this doesn't prove to us that Satan is behind the whole book, I mean, I don't know what else will be behind it. I mean, give me a break. I mean, how can you say that you're using words and magical letters and practices that are applicable to occult, basically, properties, and still claim that it's divinely inspired?
The next verse says, "Then woe to those who write the book with their own hands and then say, 'This is from Allah,' to purchase with it a little price. Woe to them for what their hands have written, and woe to them for what they earn." Can it get more clear than that? Woe to those who write the book with their own hands and then say, "This is from Allah."
When we talk about Zalik al-Kitabu la raiba fi, this is the second verse basically, but in essence it's the first but second verse. The problem is that it could be, the qira can be done with Zalik al-Kitab b'ghayr lam, without the lam. Zal alif lam kaf. So they say that the first qira of the Jamaat could be without the lam. And how do you translate it? Without the L, let's just say that. So they removed the L, so they said Baghair Lam.
When you remove the definite article, then you're not specifically talking about one particular book. You're talking just about a book in this case.
And there Abdullah bin Masood, who is once again a very huge, sorry.
Now, how much is this the case? How many people, they don't even really know what's in their book? They don't know the history about it being passed down, who decided what was going to go in it, who wrote it. But rather, they have this faith, they just have this wishful thinking, and they just assume things, they just guess.
Muhammad says there are 4 people that you should learn the Quran from. One of them is Abdullah bin Masood. In other words, Abdullah bin Masood was one of the scribes of Muhammad. Let me translate what we mean by scribe. I mean, I'm just being facetious here. He's the guy that was writing when Muhammad claimed that he received his revelation. Abdullah bin Masood ended up having his own codex, actually, when Muhammad died. His codex had 111 chapters. We have 114. He had 111 chapters because he rejected Al-Fatiha and he rejected the last 2, claiming that those are just prayers.
But rather, you have a bunch of anonymous people. They can tell there were different scribes and authors adding and changing things, losing things. People coming together saying, we're going to put this in, we're going to keep this out. That's what you have. So please stop using this flimsy, ridiculous argument.
Absolutely correct. And that is why Abdullah bin Masood holds a very high rank in the early scholars. And that is why this is the first point that he quoted, that according to the qira'ah of the Quran of Abdullah bin Masood, it should not be Zalika, because that's a big problem, because it means that. So if a book is writing about some book and saying that book, it means it's talking about some other book. Hence he says this should be written as Alif Lam Mim, this first verse, Tanzilul Kitab La Raiba Fi. brother.
Notice Abdullah ibn Mas'ud solved the problem. He picked it up immediately. He says, wait a minute. If we're saying Dhalik, we're talking about another book. Let's talk about this book. It says the revelation of the book, meaning this book now. Now he's bringing it home to the book that supposedly, assuming we're talking about the Quran, because it doesn't say that.
The next verse says, "Then woe to those who write the book with their own hands and then say, 'This is from Allah,' to purchase with it a little price. Woe to them for what their hands have written, and woe to them for what they earn." Can it get more clear than that? Woe to those who write the book with their own hands and then say, "This is from Allah."
Yeah, Surah Al-Ikhlas, folks. That's what the Muslims always bring to the table to prove that there is a doctrine of Tawheed, that Allah is one, and they use the word Ahad.
So, Kul huwallahu ahad. So, standard narrative says, say that Allah is one. But we all know that it is not one, it is one of, and this is what these people are going to talk about. So let's read. Wakara Abdullah bin Mas'ud. But see, imagine this guys, these two major scribes of Quran, the Qaris of Quran, and Muhammad said, if you want to read Quran or learn from Ubay ibn Ka'b, the second guy, Abdullah bin Mas'ud wa Ubay ibn Ka'b. These two major guys, they are saying, when Muhammad gave us this word, he did not give us with the kul, the first letter. He did not give us with the kul. He said, Huwallahu ahad bagair kul, without the kul.
Now, how much is this the case? How many people, they don't even really know what's in their book. They don't know the history about it being passed down. Who decided what was going to go in it? Who wrote it?
Yeah. So Wakira Nabi, so the Kira of the Nabi, the statements of the Nabi, means the Prophet. Wahiya an Abi Mas'ud ibn Mas'ud wa Abi bin Ka'b, Ubay bin Ka'b, Allah Ahad. So they say, now they first removed the kul, now they removed huwa, and then they said Bagair kul wahu.
Yeah. In other words, instead of reading it today, say it is He, Allah, who is one. That's the English translation, which the Arabic does not support that. They're saying that according to this tradition, that allegedly the Prophet of Islam read it even without the He. He just read this, Allah Ahad. Allah is one, technically speaking.
Exactly. And then the next highlight is they are fixing it, brother. Check this out. Allah al-Wahid.
Which, why do you think they did that, brother? Doesn't this prove that Ahad doesn't mean one? So they discovered the problem and they said, no. Allah is the one. Now, al-Wahid, at least in Arabic, supports the translation of one for sure.
Now, the second point that I wanted to close with is that your own scholars know. They know your book has been changed. With some of you, it's as if you're trying to use the Quran to convince yourself.
Umar bin al-Khattab, the Caliph of Muhammad.
Yeah, second Caliph.
Second Caliph, Ibn Mas'ud wa Rabi bin Hashim, they said, Kul huwallahu al-Wahid. So the verse should be, if Allah is the one, it should actually write it as Kul huwallahu al-Wahid. Just like over here.
It's amazing because Umar ibn al-Khattab also was surprised to discover that the Quran was revealed in 7 ahruf.
But rather, you have a bunch of anonymous people. They can tell there were different scribes and authors adding and changing things, losing things. People coming together saying, we're going to put this in, we're going to keep this out. That's what you have. So please stop using this flimsy, ridiculous argument.
But the father of Hafsa, the companion of Muhammad, the closest one to him, Umar, and the second caliph, did not read Ahad. He read it Al-Wahid because that's the right reading if you want to claim that he's one.
Exactly, brother. Exactly. And then you have like 4 people claiming that it should be Al-Wahid, and your current Mus'haf is saying Ahad. And now the next line is more problematic because Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. These are the 2 verses of this chapter number 112, first and second. Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. Now, Umar is actually combining the 2 verses into one. Kul huwallahu al-wahidus samad.
Right. So it's not 4 verses anymore. It's 3.
Yeah, so Kul huwallahu al-wahidus samad. So he joined verse
Yep.
number 1 and verse number 2 together.
Now, how much is this the case? How many people, they don't even really know what's in their book? They don't know the history about it being passed down, who decided what was going to go in it, who wrote it. But rather, they have this faith. They just have this wishful thinking. They just assume things. They just guess.
Let me ask you this, brother. You know, I mean, and I'm just thinking out loud. Are you telling me that the Quran was revealed in one way and these guys are changing it? Or are we saying these guys did not take the Quran seriously and they said, okay, well, I get the message, so now I'm going to just recite the meaning of what I understood?
I would take the second part, brother.
It's obvious that the early Muslims did not take this book seriously, did not look at it as something they have to repeat verbatim. They understood that, okay, Allah is one, and he is also supposedly a samad, if they even know what the meaning is. You know, he is this God that is definitely have the power and everything. Okay, we're going to recite it the way we can remember how to recite it.
Now, the second point that I wanted to close with is that your own scholars know. They know your book has been changed. With some of you, it's as if you're trying to use the Quran to convince yourself, but rather you have a bunch of anonymous people. They can tell there were different scribes and authors adding and changing things, losing things. People coming together saying, we're going to put this in, we're going to keep this out. That's what you have. So please stop using this flimsy, ridiculous argument.